I've always wanted to use this illustration, but until now I've never had the opportunity to do so. So I asked Bill for a bill, and he just gave me the first thing that he had, right? But I was never able to do this, so I'm really excited about this. How did that make you feel? Perhaps you thought these three different things. Perhaps you thought, well, what are you thinking? That could have been used to pay for something, or Bill could have used it to pay for something that he needed or that I needed. Or maybe you thought that could have been given to someone who really needs it. Or maybe even that could have been given to God. Well, that leads us right into our study and our lesson, which is a continued series on the book entitled The Christian Atheist. And when we dig it deeper into the chapter that I've been assigned, that's titled, When You Believe in God, but Trust More in Money. Guess what? It doesn't matter how much money you give to God, or how much money you give to a homeless person, or how much money you even keep for yourself. It all comes down to your heart in the matter. This lesson is not specifically about our commandments to give as we've been prospered, or the fact that God so loves a cheerful giver. We understand those concepts from 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 8. And it's not about we just give as the early church gave, as that example was set forth for us, although you may hear some tidbits tied in, but this is about the individual's mindset as it directly relates to the transfer of funds. When I read through this chapter, I was able to divide it up into the following three areas: the mindset of giving, the results of a changed mindset, and the change in giving. So the first point we're going to discuss is the mindset or the heart, because that's really where it is, the heart or the mindset of giving. The author discusses this idea of convenient giving versus sacrificial giving. And he has his own illustrations, and he paints the picture. But let's say, for instance, you're walking down the street and there's someone, a beggar, with a cup, and you have the quarters or coins or nickels, dimes, dollar bills in your pocket, and you can conveniently drop that right into the cup. And you say, oh man, I'm a giver. I've given that money up. It's no problem. Well, let's take it the next step further. Let's say you're in a drive-through and you look behind you in your rear view and you tell the worker you want to pay for their meal. Well, that's a little more money, and hopefully that person behind you is not getting food for a very large football team. But for the most part, that's convenient giving. It may get into the sacrificial giving. But what about those big ticket items? What about someone that has a couple $100 car repair that's needed? Or depending on where you are, it may be a couple $1,000s that may be a little bit more sacrificial. You may have to sacrifice something in your life to give to that person. But what causes us to hold back? What causes us to delay in that sacrificial giving? Is it the fact that we may trust more in our retirement accounts? That money that we're going to give to somebody, we could actually put that in our account and have more money later in our lives? Or maybe a better quality of life or of living? You know, that next best thing that will improve our life that we're waiting for? It comes down to God versus money. Do we trust in God, or do we trust in money? Do we trust more in the treasures? And it's funny because when we think about what's printed on money, it leads to that ironic statement, in God we trust. But do we really trust in God? Luke 12:34, we've all heard this before. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Is money for better in your life, or is it for worse? Is it for better or for worse when we're talking about money? Could even a little bit of money, a little bit more money, make you happier, make your life better? Well, you think about it, how much would it actually take? How much would it take to feel more secure? How much would it take to make you feel more comfortable? or even happier, that number is going to vary. It's like a sliding scale. The author points out, considering this topic, I always told myself, one day, when we have a certain amount saved, then I'll feel secure. Yet each time I crossed that imaginary line of security, my line moved. What before seemed like more than enough suddenly didn't feel like close to enough. You see, that sliding scale is going to change, and it's going to depend on where your heart is. Is your heart on the things that make and give you security, the things that make you more comfortable, the things that make you happier? You see, when we allow our heart to guide us and move that line, we no longer apply "in God we trust," because our hearts now begin to tell us how much we need or how much it'll take to fulfill those needs. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 10 deals with money. And you've probably heard this before, and you're probably going to hear how I explain it. But let's really dig into it. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. The verse tells us, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It does not say, for money is the root of all kinds of evil. Why? Because money is amoral. It's neither bad nor good. It's what the person that has it does with it. And where their heart is how money can be used. But is your heart prepared to give? As we're talking about the mindset or the heart of a giver, of giving, is your heart prepared? Think about the steps that we've had through our life. Even before acquiring money as a child, we were excited about life. We had things given to us. We had things given to us from our Father. Does that kind of sound familiar for us as Christians? But we were excited. We didn't have money yet. We didn't acquire it. Our life was just carefree and wonderful. But as we started receiving money, and as adults, we have responsibilities. What happens in those cases? We have children that have to go to college. We have automobiles that need repair. We have insurance bills. We have changing jobs. We have all these things. Well, where's your heart when it comes to giving now? Because money, again, is now being more relied upon as we get older. And is that correct? And what about when you become very blessed with money? That means when you're rich, right? Where's your heart? Are you a giving spirit and you want to give to others? Or do you just want to collect more and more money and have that evil that the love of money speaks of come into your life? So where is your heart? Is it with God or is it with money? One way to think about this would be a GPS. When you put an address in on your phone and it directs you to one particular place. If it's on the east side of town, it's going to take you to the east side of town. It will not take you to the west side of town. We are directed and we are taken to the east side of town. It's only one way that we can go. And that brings up Luke 16 in verse 13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon or riches. Remember, money is amoral. It's neither good nor bad, but where your heart is with it is the big deal here. Is it with God when you have money, or is it with the money itself and what it brings and what you can buy with it? Where is your heart when it comes to the money? Point number 2, the results of a changed mindset or a changed heart. After looking at the mindset that we have when we give, that we need, what results when we have the proper mindset? Well, what about when we don't have the proper mindset? That's the first point here. What happens when you meet Jesus? And as Christians, we all understand we've met Jesus in a sense. We've seen his life through the gospel accounts. We've seen his example. We've seen how he takes care of the poor, how he takes care of those that are sick. We've seen all that. But what happens when you meet Jesus? Now remember that question. In Matthew 19, 21 through 22, we see the rich young ruler and what happens when he met Jesus. Jesus said to him, if you want to be perfect, go sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. And come, follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Where was his heart when he met Jesus? It was more in his possessions, more in the riches, and that caused him to be sorrowful. So his mindset, he became sorrowful when he met Jesus. Well, look at the other flip of the coin, if you will, Zacchaeus the tax collector. Luke 19, 8-9. Then Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Lord, look, I give half of my goods to the poor. And if I have taken anything from anyone by false accusation, I restore fourfold. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he also is a son of Abraham. Jesus just gave Zacchaeus salvation based upon his heart and how he acted when he met Jesus. And so that brought him joy. You have the rich young ruler sorrowful when he had his mind set on great possessions. But joy that comes when you are giving and your spirit says that you're going to take care of those that even think that you may have wronged them. That's a change of heart. Where's your heart in the matter? The author says here, but when I stay close to my God and Savior, the temporary things in this world don't seem so shiny anymore, because God is more than enough. That reminds me of a fishing lure. And when a fishing lure is broken, it doesn't serve its purpose. It's not shiny, it's not rattling, it's not doing those things. And that's what he's saying here, is when we are closer to God, those things of the world, money here, are not as shiny. They don't entice us. They don't bring us away from God. So even with money, with a changed heart, the shiny part of money is dull, and we don't even desire it. We don't look at it because we have a changed heart and we are so close to God. So what does the Bible say to those that are rich? In this country, those that have enough, they don't worry about what they're going to eat every day. They don't worry about their mortgage. They don't worry about their utility bill. What does the Bible say? In 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 17, Paul says to Timothy, command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, not to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. So he's saying those that have plenty of funds to take care of themselves, don't trust in them. Don't be haughty about it. And let's just trust in the living God, because he will richly give us all things to enjoy. And that's beyond what any amount of money could buy. What about to the not so rich? Those that don't quite have enough, if you will. Those that are struggling because their job doesn't pay them enough to support their family, to pay that mortgage bill for the next month. Or when the utility bills go up, it really hurts them. What's the Bible say? It says, have your mindset here in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19-20. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. He's saying, don't start putting your trust in those riches that you're craving, that you're needing to sustain life, if you will, because God will sustain life for you. He is all sufficient in everything. So Jesus is saying, keep your focus on heaven and not on earth. And what about to everyone, rich or poor? Where is your mindset? The author says, many wealthy Christian atheists serve leftovers to a holy God. It's a very sad quote, but it's very powerful. In Scripture, we see two very interesting examples of this. God, speaking through Malachi to his people, says this in Malachi 1:8. And when you offer the blind as a sacrifice, this blind animals, is it not evil? And when you offer the lame and sick, the animals, is it not evil? Offer it then to your governor. Would he be pleased with you? Would he accept you favorably, says the Lord of hosts? You see, their mindset was, we're going to give that second best thing to God. We're not putting God as a priority in our giving. But when we have a changed mindset It allows us to put God first. 2 Samuel 24, we see a great example of David's heart here. Verses 19 through 25. We see here that David is on his way to build an altar and to make sacrifices to God. But he was stopped by a gracious servant. And this gracious servant wanted to provide the elements, the animals, the incense to David free of charge for David to sacrifice to God. Well, we see here that David's heart was in the right place. In verse 24 of 2 Samuel chapter 24, it says, "Then the king said to Araunah, 'No, but I will surely buy it from you.'" I'm not taking it for free, he says. "I will buy it from you for a price. Nor will I offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God with that which cost me nothing." Basically, David's saying, I didn't sacrifice anything to give to God. I am not taking these free gifts from you to give to God. It's my responsibility to sacrifice to give to God. So what do we bring to God? Do we bring our second best items? Or maybe just the birthday card money that was given to us? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. So then point number 3, what change takes place when we give? If our heart is in the right place and our mindset's set, what change takes place? The author says here, instead of increasing our standard of living, we're increasing our standard of giving. So what does the Bible say about the change that we should have in our hearts in giving? And what example is there? Well, in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 through 5, we see a great example that Paul is sharing with the Corinthians about the Macedonians. In verse 1 of chapter 8 in 2 Corinthians, we read, "Moreover, brethren, we make known to you the grace of God bestowed on the churches of Macedonia, that in a great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded in the riches of their liberality. For I bear witness that according to their ability, yes, and beyond their ability, they were freely willing, imploring us with much urgency that we would receive the gift and the fellowship of ministering to the saints." Their heart, the source of giving, the source that came from their heart, was a source of abundant joy. It caused abundant joy to want to give, to want to help. And that's the key here, that if we have that attitude when we sacrificially give, that shows that we're drawing closer to God and not of those possessions of the world. There's an absolute distinction here that sacrificial giving will bring you closer to God. Anyone can conveniently give. What's convenient to you, what's convenient to me, we're not losing out on anything. We're giving our second best to God. We're keeping those first important animals, if you will, like in Malachi. We're keeping those for ourselves, but we're giving God our second best. But here we see the Macedonians, it's the source of abundant joy, is what Paul says. And they did this by offering themselves to God first. And that's what we have to do. So in conclusion, we have to look at the change in giving that takes place in our heart. And that change has to take place first. The author says, why is it that those, this is an interesting quote, why is it that those who have so little often seem to have so much? And why do those with so much seem to have so little that really matters? It brought me to a time earlier in my life when I was a firefighter, and we would do MDA boot drives, muscular dystrophy awareness, and we would have a boot out in traffic collecting money. Many, many, many wealthy vehicles went by, left their windows up, and ignored us. While the cars that look like they shouldn't be on the road, they're making a sound like a jet engine with all the motor parts inside of it rolling through with countless repairs needed, they would dump all of their change from their car, and they would take larger bills and throw them into the boot. They were giving freely. And it was quite interesting to observe and to be a part of, because when you look at it scripturally, you can see that, again, money is neither bad nor good. It's all about the heart and how you deal with the money that you have. And then as we've looked further, we see that as we get closer to God, the shininess of that money fades away and we can focus on God. We started with 1 Timothy chapter 6, specifically down in verse 10, but we're going to conclude with verse 11. It gives us what we should do. But I'm going to read it again, 1 Timothy chapter 6, 9 through 10. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. And here it is in verse 11. But you, O man, O woman, O Christian, but you, flee these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, gentleness. Flee the love of money and pursue the love of God and the love for God. And that will allow our heart, my heart, your heart, to be set for sacrificial giving. And then allow God to bless us even more in this life.